Okay, so a lot of modern manufacturers nowadays are giving you a choice of steel when you buy a plane, but the information on them is a little bit vague in a lot of times, and it's hard to know which one is going to suit your tasks the best. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through 3 of the steels I have personally used, my likes about them, my dislikes about them, and the advantages that they have. Welcome to Tool Duel. There's someone with a very noisy drill out there. I think he's done. So, as always, let's get you in close and have a closer look at... Before it starts again. Right, let's get you in close and see what we're looking at here. So here, I have got a Veritas shoulder plane. And in this shoulder plane, I have got an 01 blade in this. Now I'll put that at the bottom of the screen so it's easy for you to refer to and remember which plane has what blade in it. So shoulder plane 01. In my LIE-NIELSEN number 4, I have got an A2 blade, which currently is the only one available from LIE-NIELSEN, at least in the UK, I'm not sure about America. And finally here, I have got the Veritas NX60 block plane, and in this I have got Veritas's own premium steel, which is PM-V11. Now let me give you a brief overview of how these are marketed at least. So to start with, 01 is a softer steel, and as a result you can get a sharper edge because it is less brittle. The downside to that is that the sharp edge does not last as long on it. A2 is a harder steel and as a result has a longer lasting edge, but that edge is brittle, so you cannot get a sharpened edge on A2 as you can on 01, but it is longer lasting. PM-V11 is the best bits of these two in one blade. So similar to 01, it's soft enough to be easy to sharpen and also get a sharp edge like you can with 01. But that sharp edge is not soft, it's still a hard steel, so that's where it takes the benefit from A2. It's harder, so it's longer lasting. So in essence, you've got the sharp edge for an 01 and you've got the long lasting edge from an A2, all in a PM-V11 blade here. Now, that is how they are sold. And in my experience, that is relatively true. But let me talk you through how I went about choosing each of the blades for these planes. Why have I put 01 in a shoulder plane? Well, the reason for this is that when 01 gets blunt, because it's soft, the edge literally folds over and it pretty much completely stops cutting. You cannot push that through the wood anymore and it forces you to sharpen it. Now the reason I put this in a shoulder plane is because when I'm trimming end grain on a shoulder or a tenon or whatever, I want that blade to be as sharp as possible. I don't want to have the temptation of being able to use a blunt blade on it because I will just end up smashing out the end grain on the opposite side. So that's why I chose an 01 on it. Once it gets blunt, it completely stops and I have to sharpen it. So it's good practice for me. In reality, I should probably use it for all of my tools, but 01, that is why I use it for this. Now A2, like I said, longer lasting edge. But one thing you need to keep in mind with that is that edge is obviously not as sharp as 01, and that edge does not fold over like 01 does when it gets blunt. Instead, you can still use this blade relatively easy. So as a result, it's very easy to get a bad finish from a plane using this blade. Now the reason I put A2 in my number 4 is my workflow, I usually plane something and then I'll sand it. I am not looking for a planed finish on the surface of timber. So I can use this plane when it's sharp and when it's starting to get a little bit blunt. Obviously when it gets too blunt and it starts tearing out and stuff, I will sharpen it from there, but I can use it for a little bit longer than an 01 blade, which for me is really good for a number 4 because I use this plane so much. This is my favourite plane and I don't really want to be back and forth between the sharpening station all the time. So I use this because I'm going to sand it afterwards anyway. I'm not looking for a planed finish. Now, onto the PM-V11 blade in the NX60. Now, I chose PM-V11 for this because, like I mentioned in my honing guide video, that blade is a nightmare to sharpen, or was a nightmare to sharpen when I had my old Eclipse honing guide. So I got a PM-V11 blade because I wanted that sharp edge, but I wanted it to be long lasting as well. So I didn't have to faff about with trying to set it up in the honing guide all the time. I wanted that edge to last as long as possible during use. So my experience with PM-V11 is, in terms of sharpening, it is not as easy as 01, but it's definitely easier than A2. This is pretty easy to get back to your primary bevel should you need to grind it, and very easy to get a secondary bevel on it as well. In terms of edge retention, it lasts a little bit longer than A2, but not a massive amount in my opinion. Also, PM-V11 still has the potential of being used dull, like with A2. The edge does not fold over like it does on O1. So if you're thinking of putting PM-V11 in a shoulder plane, for example, and you want to keep that as sharp as possible all the time, bear in mind that you will still be able to use this blunt. O1, the edge will fold over and it will stop cutting completely. Now, another instance where you may get a choice in steel is with chisels. Now, when I first purchased my LIE-NIELSENs, I had a choice of A2 or O1, and I was sucked into buying O1 by the statistic that you could get a sharper edge with O1. So I was like, well, why wouldn't you go for a sharper edge? I'll just go by that. But what it didn't say is that it doesn't last as long as A2. So I tried out the O1s for a month or so and found that the edges were just constantly getting blunt. It was a bit annoying having to go back to the sharpening stone all the time and keep an edge on them. And I think a lot of this is down to the fact that the chisel is subject to a lot of impact hits where it's getting hit from above like that. A softer steel, in my eyes, would be easier to fold over the edge, whereas a harder steel, it's going to keep that edge despite the fact it is a little bit blunter than an O1. So I then switched to the A2 and I absolutely love these now. I don't worry too much about the fact that they're harder to sharpen because at the end of the day, a chisel, there is a lot less metal there, so it's still pretty easy to sharpen. I just need to stay on top of keeping them sharp so that I don't start smashing in shoulder lines when I'm doing dovetails. So that's why I chose A2 steel for chisels. Veritas also do chisels in PM-V11. So again, I would be happy with choosing that because it's got a long lasting edge and good impact resistance. So all in all, if the finish of a plane is going to directly result the fit of a joint, so think a tenon going into a mortise, for example, and you want to trim those shoulder lines back, I would choose O1 because you need that blade to be sharp to get that good joint at the end of it. If you're using a dull blade, you're going to smash out the end grain on the opposite side, you're going to create a little bit of tear out on the end grain. It's not going to be a good joint, so forcing yourself to have to use a sharp blade is ideal for a shoulder plane. If, like me, you use planes to flatten bits of wood and flush off joints, but you're going to be sanding it afterwards, A2 or PM-V11 is ideal for that because you're not relying on the finish of the plane to be your finished surface. You're going to be sanding it afterwards, so it doesn't really matter as long as you keep it to a workable condition. You're not just using like a spade fitted into a plane to take shavings off the wood. And if, like me, you really don't like spending a lot of time at the sharpening station, PM-V11 would be a good bet. Like I said, it sharpens about as easily as O1, so your sharpening sessions are going to be relatively quick, and the edge lasts a little bit longer as well, so you can go longer between those sharpening sessions, which is always nice as well. Obviously, you pay a little bit of a surplus for this premium steel, but it's still pretty good in my opinion. And for chisels, A2 or PM-V11 I feel are the winners for this. The O1 just didn't withstand those impacts, so I had to swap to an A2. So hopefully that cleared up a lot of your questions about that. Obviously, there's a lot of information out there. Some of it's varied, some of it's biased. It's quite hard to find reliable information on it. I'm just giving you my honest opinion after 3 to 4 years of using all of these steels and the instances where I found they worked best. So, as always, any comments, chuck them below. I'll do my best to answer them, and probably other people will as well. Just share your opinions on what works best for you and just help other people make a good choice. So, thank you for watching. See you in the next video.